Hey, folks, we're just about at the top of the hour. So we'll get started in just a few seconds and we'll go over some housekeeping and then we'll get started. Thanks so much. All right, everybody, we're at the top. Oops. We're at the top of the hour. This is Darlene Walnick. I'm the Training and Technical Assistance Director at Farmers Market Coalition. And we're going to get started right at the top of the hour so that we can make sure we get all of these speakers in and get as many questions as we can answered. It's a lot going on in the subject. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing. And then Ben Feldman, our executive director, will tell you a little bit more about the resources we have available and what's been happening. So today on this webinar, we have a whole group of market leaders who are right now testing different strategies for physical redesign of their farmers markets. That was the main idea here today. We're not going to talk a lot about online platforms. That's going to be on another webinar. We have a survey for that, which Ben will talk a little bit about. But basically, this is about markets that have done some sort of physical redesign. And I have to give credit to Kathy Zeman, Minnesota Farmers Market Association, who came to us with this idea as our first webinar, and she was absolutely right. It's a great way to start this. And so in Zoom, all of you are muted as attendees. We have automatically muted you. You will stay muted. We are not going to be able to take questions live because we have 500 attendees. But as you listen in, you can type in something into the chat screen, and we'll be monitoring that at the end. If we have time, we'll answer that. If we don't have time to answer your questions, we will hold them and put them as part of our FAQs. We have a whole list of questions already that we're going to respond to today based on the surveys that many of you already filled out that were part of the registration form. And if you haven't seen that, we'll show you that as well as on the FMC site. We'd like to get more responses about what markets are doing around the country. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ben Feldman, our executive director, to give a little bit of an update and talk a little bit about what we are seeing. Take it away, Ben.
Thanks, Dar, and thanks to everybody who's joined us for the webinar today. Obviously, this is a critical moment, a worldwide moment, as it were. This pandemic is something that is touching every corner of the globe. It manages to be at the same time both a global phenomenon and a very personal one, right? Everybody is experiencing it differently in their own communities and their own personal lives. For some of us, there are direct and immediate impacts of loss of lives and livelihood. And so acknowledging that at the outset, I think is important for us to keep that in mind, the context with which we're talking about. And these types of crisis moments really have the potential to help clarify about what it is that we do on a day-to-day basis that is essential. And for the Farmers Market Coalition and for all of you all, it's clear this type of crisis helps clarify food is essential. Farmers markets are essential. And at the same time, we also have a responsibility to implement social distancing practices and ensure that people who are within our communities are, to the extent possible, protected from the spread of the disease. Markets have an obligation in order to do everything that they can in order to prevent the spread of the virus, while at the same time ensuring that people have access to food and people have access to and farmers have access to their livelihood. So from our perspective, it's very important that we take proactive steps, which is why we're here today, to give you some opportunities to see examples of how you can redesign your market in order to make sure that they are doing their part to protect public safety and their part to ensure that people have access to food. Farmers markets that can't implement policies for social distancing and to prevent the spread of the disease probably should not be open at this time. And the other piece to that is also thinking about personal protective equipment. As we're seeing guidance around masks changing, it's very important that market operators be thinking about how to ensure that market staff as well as vendors and vendor staff have personal protective equipment at market in order to prevent the spread of this virus. So without further ado, I do want to mention just a couple of pieces that FMC is working on at the federal level. As I mentioned, farmers markets are essential, and we continue to push for a federal declaration that states as such. We have been working with many of you all, as well as many of our state partners, in order to have those declarations made at the state level. But as we've heard from many folks who had questions leading up to this webinar, there is a real challenge of multiple jurisdictions and multiple different guidance that markets are getting. And so the need for that federal declaration is strong, and we continue to push for that. So we also recognize that that challenge of individual markets that may be experiencing at a municipal level, certainly a challenging situation. One potential avenue is if you are receiving a variety of guidance from your local agencies, to consider moving that up the chain, getting state agencies involved, and doing what you can in order to continue to advocate for markets as essential services, and seeking that clarifying guidance. Again, we're also engaged in the federal relief packages. We, working with some of our policy partners, have been successful in ensuring that farmers who sell through direct market channels are included in the relief package. There is still not a lot of clarity on what the delivery mechanism there will be, but that we were successful on that front. We've also received clarification that market operators can apply for SBA loans and grants. That's something that there's a little more guidance on, but it's coming out slowly. We are developing a resource for all of you in order to help make clear what those opportunities are for market operators who have either increased costs as a result of redesigning your market, or just that you're maintaining your staff over the same level as previous years, but your income is declining as you have fewer vendors attending the market. Also worth mentioning that the deadline for the farmers market and local food promotion program grants have been extended. We greatly appreciate USDA AMS making that extension. Grants are extended until May 26th. We did also hear from them that the reason they did not extend those further is in order to ensure that they're able to still get them out on time. So we certainly appreciate that as well. We would not want the money to be delayed as a result of this, because many applicants are likely to use those funds in their coronavirus relief efforts if they flow quickly. We are still seeking a waiver on match requirements. However, that is something that will require congressional approval, and remains to see whether that will be something that will happen before those applications are due. We did get some questions about online or telephone SNAP. I will just quickly mention there are some efforts. There is an existing online SNAP pilot that has been in place in just under 10 states. And there are efforts to expand that. But in order for, say, a farmer's market operator to take advantage of it, the state that they're in would first have to opt into that online pilot, and then there'd need to be an application process to be part of that. So unfortunately, we're still a little ways away from that, but there are efforts in place in order to try and expedite that process. We are also hearing from a number of the SNAP and WIC processors that they are attempting to develop systems in order to allow for either online processing or telephone-based processing that would eliminate the need for that card-to-card transaction or card-present transaction. But as of right now, EBT processing does require a card-present transaction. There are some flexibilities for nonprofits around pre-order. You can take orders, or you can receive payments for product up to 2 weeks in advance. So there may be opportunities to reduce the number of transactions, but until we see more in terms of the online and telephone processing, that's the limit that is available to markets right now. Now, I do want to go ahead and just quickly share my screen in order to show you a couple of the places that our resources at the Farmers Market Coalition are living. Right here at our website, networking/events, you can see today's webinar. Here's the survey. We'd really highly encourage you to take this survey. Please fill it out. Questions that you have about your experience, as well as if you sign up there in filling out that survey, that's how we will be sending out the recording of this webinar. So if you're interested in receiving that, please go ahead and do that there. We also do have a couple webinars scheduled, one for Wednesday on the big picture of SNAP and EBT processing and technology with Peter Ehrlich. That should be a great webinar, obviously not directly related to COVID-19, but a ton of valuable resources there as well. We also, for COVID-19, have a couple different blog posts up right now. This first one at Farm is under our blog. So if you go to news blog, it's the first one there. And it's on basically our daily, I should say regular updates on the coronavirus situation, with information about various states and what they're doing. From here, we've also got another one. If you follow this link, we have compiled best practices, which is all about what we're here to talk about today, but has a number of things that you can be thinking about, should be thinking about, resources, photos of what markets are doing in order to combat the spread. So some great resources there. And then I also want to mention just a couple other things. For those of you who are not yet Farmers Market Coalition members, I highly encourage you to become one. Your participation in FMC is part of what allows us to be able to have this type of quick response in order to make sure that we are engaging with all of you as well as federal agencies to address challenges like this that we're all facing. There's also a lot there for you as an individual organization. We have discounts on EBT equipment. We have discounts on market management software, discounts on canopies and other equipment at market. So I highly recommend that you all join FMC if you're not already a member. Many of you are members through your state association, and we thank you for that. And the last thing I want to mention is that one of the places where if you continue to have questions that you'd like to ask of other market managers that you can turn is the FMC listserv. That's a valuable resource that is open to any market operator who'd like to participate. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and pass it back over to Dar. Thank you, Dar.
Thanks, Ben. I know people had, I'm sure, you may want to stop sharing your screen too. Thank you. People had a lot of questions about the things that, Ben, you want to, yeah, there you go. And we will not have time to go through all of the questions because we have so many speakers, but we will definitely keep track of every question you've asked. And some of them will be answered in the chat screen, and we'll get that out to everybody who is not looking at the chat screen. So now that Ben's done, he's going to look through the chat screen, see what y'all asked of him, see if he can answer it from there. So keep looking back in there. He's going to respond, and then we'll keep going through that. And we're going to also keep track of all these questions so we can take them offline and do an FAQ. I mean, there are so many questions and issues to come up. I wish we could get all of you, we could get everything to you, but we can't. Great. All right. So we're going to talk about what markets are doing to physically redesign their spaces. This is definitely what this is going to focus on. There'll be a little talk among some of these market operators about online platforms, but we're not going to spend any time on that because that really is a whole different conversation. And so we're instead going to have them talk about what they're doing, show you some photos, and then we're also starting to gather information about everybody's online platforms at the market level, and we're collecting that so that we hopefully can do another webinar using some other market leaders who are doing some of that work on another webinar in a few weeks. And there's other choices we can make in terms of webinars. So just let us know what you need from us, and we're going to be happy to do that. All right, so the people who are going to be talking today, you can see on my screen share, we've got some market managers, and we've got direct marketing specialists from Ohio State as well. So we're very excited about the people who agreed to share their experiences with you today. They've all tried to focus on a specific thing that they're doing, that everybody else is doing a slightly different thing. They've gone through the questions that we've asked, you've all asked us, and sort of see if they can answer some of those in their presentations. So a lot of this hopefully will be covered. A lot of the questions you've asked were pretty much along the same lines, the 6 or 7 or 8 things, and we hope that these panelists will answer those. As we said, this will be recorded and we'll be able to share that with you. Okay, so you can see here our speakers are David Katsanis from St. Paul Farmers Market, and we've got Martha Archer from Mill City in Minneapolis, Lise Lascour from Pepper Place in Birmingham, Jess Joyce, Rochester Farmers Market in Minnesota, and then Christy Welch, Ohio State. So we're going to start with David, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let him share his screen so he can show you photos while he talks. David? Sorry, let me, there you go.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can, yes.
All right, I don't know that I'm going to be able to, unfortunately, I don't know if I'm going to be able to share my screen. It doesn't seem to be really cooperating with me right now.
Okay. I'll see if I can get your photos up. I'll see if I can find them and get them up for you. Okay.
You know, the first photograph that I had was it was a diagram of my market, basically showing how we've spread the stalls out. So we're fortunate enough to have enough space that I can have an empty stall between each vendor booth. This is spread out the customers as well as the vendors. It's kind of spread out the whole marketplace. At each entrance, we have a hand washing station set up, and also a sign reminding people to wash their hands and to do the social distancing guidelines. Okay, awesome.
Great, so mine's gonna take a little while too. Uh-oh. There's a map, there's your map.
So just kind of real quickly, the dark green spaces are vendors, and you can see that we've put them every other stall to allow for as much social distancing as we need. Right now, we're lucky because it's, now it's April in Minnesota, so it's still pretty cold, which keeps the customers away a little bit. So we're drawing about 700 customers a day. These blue dots here are our entrances, and this is where we have hand washing stations set up. We also have signage right next to the hand washing stations. And you'll see just an example of what the station looks like later. Here I do have an office that has bathrooms, and so that's why I don't have a hand washing station at that location. In the next photo, you'll see a picture of a diagram.
This one?
Yeah. Just kind of real briefly was my first thought about how to provide for the social distancing space between vendors and customers. And what we did was add an extra empty table in front of the vendor's table with products between the customers. And the two tables together creates a 5-foot physical barrier, allowing for that 6-foot social distance to be easily kept. And in the next picture, you'll see how it works. So here we've got the empty tables in front of the table with the products, and the customers and the vendors are 6 feet apart. And it was real simple, and most of the vendors have their own extra tables. Another thing we do is have signage on top of the tables that asks the customers to allow the vendors to serve them, to try to keep them from reaching in. But those tables also prevent people from reaching in. Chalk marks on the pavement every 6 feet kind of show the vendors where they might want to stand as they're entering and while they're standing in line. We've asked the vendors to bring their own hand washing stations. We've eliminated the cloth table covers so that vinyl table covers are okay. They can be easily cleaned. We've also provided gloves and masks for anybody that wants one. We've had volunteers making cloth masks, and so we've had enough. Most everybody's bringing their own. And we're encouraging vendors to have 2 people in each booth, one to take money and the other to hand out product. In addition, we're encouraging the customers to shop solo and leave other family members at home, to make a list in advance to expedite their shopping trip, to ask the vendors for the products that they would like and let the vendors serve them, and then also to respect the 6-foot social distancing guidelines. We're still selling tokens. Fortunately, our tokens are metal and plastic, so we're able to sterilize them. We put them in a bucket after we're done, after they've completed their cycle, with some bleach water. We do allow for reusable bags, but ask that the customers fill their bags. And we're protecting our volunteers and staff by providing masks, providing gloves, really maintaining that 6-foot social distancing, and asking our staff just not to do what they're not comfortable doing, and to protect themselves. And with that, I'll leave it. Those are the steps that we're taking. I do have concerns, I guess, that once we reach June, when produce starts coming into the market, the 6-foot social distancing will be really hard to sustain, and we're currently looking at other means. So thanks.
Great, thanks, David. That's really helpful. Okay, next we're going to have Martha talk about her pre-order pickup model pilot. Martha? Oh, I mute you. Sorry. I've unmuted you. Martha, are you there? Sorry, I think we're playing.
Yep.
There you go. Stop trying to unmute you.
All right. Now you got me. That's great. And can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. Sorry. Let me just try that one more time.
There you go. There you go. We can see
Okay.
it now.
Here we go. Great. Okay, so we're just entering our 15th year in downtown Minneapolis. It's not quite the birthday party we expected, but here's a view of our outdoor market and our indoor winter markets. We were currently operating every other week winter markets when the pandemic hit. So March 21st was our first winter market under a new format. We have the flexibility of being indoors in the winter and outdoors in the summer. So we moved to our outdoor space and set up the market outside as a pickup market, pre-order pickup market. So we actually had vendors park on site, which they're not normally allowed to in the summer. But because it was extremely cold, 20 degrees as a high on the 21st, and then again this weekend, we let vendors park on site. We allowed them 20-foot booth space where they normally have 10 feet with 5 feet on either side. The vendors had a table or two, as David showed, between them and the customer, washable tablecloths or no tablecloths, wipes, hand sanitizer. On the 21st, not many people were wearing masks, but as of this weekend, about 80% of the customers were wearing masks, and all of our vendors were, as well as gloves. Our vendors all took pre-orders on their own systems and sorted them and brought them, and we used a system called Calendly to schedule customers coming on site. And that helped us limit the number of customers at any one time. The first time around, we used 30-minute windows. We changed it to 15-minute windows and increased it to about 30 customers per 15 minutes, reserving the first hour from 9 to 10 for those with immune compromised customers or customers who needed to have less customers there. So we reduced the number of customers for that first hour and then went up to 30 customers per 15 minutes beyond that. That scheduling really helped us to even out the number of customers on site. As you can see, here are some photos from this Saturday. So customers came and picked up orders that were already paid for and packaged by the vendors. There was quite a bit of work that went into the packaging them. The vendors put the orders out on the table by time frame. So They kept reloading their table based on the next time slot of customer pickups that helped them keep it organized and moving quickly, so customers could move through. Here's a map of our outdoor market, and you can see the names on here. We went every other booth, and we just used, this is just half of our footprint. We also have an indoor train shed, but we just filled this with, we had 25 vendors on site, 18 listed here, and then we actually handed out orders for 7 vendors, some of whom were immune compromised. Others had so few orders that it didn't make sense for them to stand in the cold all day. So we handed out those with less than 10 orders. But we used every other space on the map. We had physical distancing signs around the market as well as at every booth to remind customers. And they did a very good job self-selecting. We did not have entrance and exit signs or traffic patterns lined out or spelled out on the mat or on the ground with chalk yet, but I feel like we will need to do that. But they definitely did a good job of spacing themselves out, as you can see in some of these photos down here, 6 feet apart. But that's going to be, as David said, much more of a challenge. We can already see, just understanding and the change of behavior, but also the space constraints. It takes up much more space than even we anticipated. And allowing people to get in and out of a fairly tight space. As you can see in this upper right photo, this is just 12 feet wide. And so once the 10-foot tent is up, so we will really need to have it be every other booth come summer, at least, if not more. The other side is only 7 feet wide, so we're gonna have to make some adjustments there as far as customers coming in and out. Here's just a couple more photos from the pickup. And there's a view of our outdoor market. That's it.
Thanks, Martha. That was good. A lot of good photos. I'm really thrilled by all the wonderful photos you guys are being able to share. It's really, I think, helpful for people. And we're going to have those photos available in some of the stuff that we hand out after this. So don't fret if you didn't quite see it. And of course, the recording will be available on the FMC site for you to watch it again. Okay, next is going to be Lisa Oscora from the market at Pepper Place in Birmingham, Alabama. And Lee, why don't you go ahead and share your screen? And I'm actually unmute you first. That was probably the thing I should say. Oh, you're unmuted already. Go ahead.
Let's see.
I can see it. Great.
Okay. Yeah, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so exciting, you guys, this is fun. We have a farmer's market in Birmingham, Alabama. We have the benefit of having a lot better weather than Minnesota does probably right now. You see we have cherry trees in bloom. We launched what we hope is a scalable contactless drive-through farmer's market. Customers pre-order and prepay online and pick up from farmers at the weekly market in their cars. There's no walking around. There's the absolutely minimum physical interaction. We started with 5 farmers about 3 weeks ago. We've been adding 3 or 4 farmers a week. And next week we should have 17 farmers. So we, we sent out came up with a listing of all of our safety requirements, came up with our design by working with state and county health officials and, and Darlene and all the best resources we could find to come up with a solution that would work for people. Alabama, as you guys may know, has been a little slow to get serious about safety and protection, and we haven't been using masks up until now, but we will start on this Saturday. As I said, all the ordering and prepay is all online. We'll talk about that website thing another time. But basically, everything is done before you get to the market. Everything is packaged up as if it were like it's like everybody's onto CSA now. where you're just receiving boxes and bags that have been pre-packed. And in certain cases, you know, you don't have that much choice on what the farmers give you, but people have really loved it. So Saturday morning, as you can see, we are nestled in a kind of a not residential part of downtown Birmingham. And in the heart of our market is this area to the right of where this line of signs are. People enter where the pre-order pickup signs are, and are arranged in a kind of a horseshoe in that parking lot. They exit and then are directed up the street onto 29th Street, which is kind of makes a corner with that. And that's allowed us to extend our footprint. We're just sort of gonna meander all over the neighborhood, sorry. So on Saturday, as I said, the market is kind of following the footprint of the outdoor market. The main entrance is on this side of the market. You can see that's a market manager. Lisa Beasley is over there checking with the people that arrive and instructing them how to just follow the snake of cars. You'd be surprised how obedient people are. They just, you know, they're single file, they're very polite. People are so incredibly grateful. It's, you know, it's quite remarkable. While they're setting up, we have a hand sanitizer station for, you know, at the beginning of our market. Each of the vendors is required to wear gloves and protective clothing. They each have their own hand sanitizing stations that they bring with them. They're working out of their trucks. Now I think they're going to add their own tents and tables if they choose to, but that's on them, and some people have more aesthetics than others. As I said, everybody will be wearing masks this Saturday, which we're having made for people. And still, it was beautiful on Saturday, so people have adapted pretty well. We have a security guy. This guy has been helping us for a really long time. He's just make sure that the traffic flow is you know, adequate. We found this Saturday we had, I think last Saturday we had about a little over 300 cars that came through. This Saturday we had 536. So it's, you know, and we are a market that has, in the big season, like 10,000 visitors a Saturday. So we're kind of expecting it to get crowded. And anyway, so then you can sort of see how it goes. There's the, you know, there's another one of the CSA boxes. It all just kind of goes around in this horseshoe. This is a video. This is our awesome farmer, Kyle. The farmers will either put things in the back seat of the car, or if people have nice trunks that they can pop, they'll put them in the trunk of the car, and the people just move on. And that's, you know, kind of basically it. There's signage around the place that that says customers must remain in their cars. There's no walk-ups or on-site purchasing. We don't provide any public restrooms. Staffers, you know, encourage pedestrian traffic in the neighborhood to kind of move along and respect the fact that this is a car space. When people get to, see, just coming on around, when people get to the 29th Street entrance, where's that? Yeah, this is another one. This is just right around the corner. Oh, hell's bells, there it is. Right around the corner from that other market, just, you know, 50 yards away, 50. The farmers are set up on the left-hand side, and people track along there. This is where we're going to add more vendors. And if you can see, there's a kind of a where there's some construction there. There's a really awesome parking lot right in there, and we're probably going to snake into that parking lot in a single file, which would allow us to add probably another 10, maybe, I don't know, you know, 10 or 15 additional vendors if this goes like well into the summer. Let's see. And then down at the end, you'll see our security guy we have a barricade set up and an exit that, so people don't drive down. This is normally a two-way street. And it's a heartbreak because people really love to come to the market and walk around, and it's really, we figured the safest thing is to keep people in their cars and to minimize the amount of contact that occurs. Between the customers, and I'm very upset about the, not being able to process SNAP easily yet, but we're working on that. So far, it's not been that costly. I know we're going to talk about that later, but because we normally do a lot for our vendors, and we set up tents and tables and take them down, and excuse me, not COVID. So we've been getting the farmers to take on that responsibility, and which is safer. And when we get to the big outdoor market, it's that's going to be tough because it just takes a longer time, and we have a lot of farmers that are coming from a long distance, and it's hot as hell, as you can imagine. So anyway, it's been pretty successful. Everybody is really happy, and we've had a visit from the state ag commissioner, Rick Pate, who'd never been to our market before and gave us a big thumbs up. He was very impressed. The health czar of Jefferson County came and visited and was very impressed and gave us a big thumbs up. So we're just kind of hoping that we can keep people focused and keep people clean and manage the cars, which is hard. And otherwise, the only other thing I'll say is that every single one of the farmers has said they've sold twice as much produce or twice as much product in this model, like compared to what they would sell at the same time of year. So they're very, very happy. And the customers have been giving us really, really awesome feedback. So that's pretty much it.
Great. See the videos are great. It's great to see those kinds of videos. I mean, that's wonderful to see that. And obviously, if you have people have anybody that can come and do that for you, it's such a phenomenal thing to be able to show that to stakeholders. All right, Lee, if you can stop sharing your screen, we'll let Karina come next.
Yes.
Next, thank you so much. So Karina Reese Smith is, of course, from the Columbia Farmers Market in Columbia, Missouri. Many people have heard her talk on other, we did some things about her new location because they're building in a permanent shed market in this park. And so that's obviously part of what she can talk about is her walk-through market and how she's been doing it for a while now to really mitigate and not do a drive-through, but a walk-through. Karina, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can.
And can you see the screen?
Now you
Not yet. Okay.
sometimes takes a minute, I've noticed. There you, oh, no. Yeah, there you are. There you are. Got it.
Okay. Yeah, so our market, we were supposed to celebrate our 40th. Well, we are celebrating our 40th anniversary this year. We are a year-round market here in Columbia, Missouri. And last summer, we moved into this new market pavilion. So we were expecting a lot of growth this year. We had counts that were going over close to like 8,000 last summer. We are expecting our crowds to be 4,000 to 5,000 this summer. We have around 80 members right now during the winter months, closer to 30 to 40, and we are run by a board of directors. So I think we're a little proactive, especially here in Missouri, watching what was happening out in the West Coast early in March. Our board met on March 10th and decided to start putting safety protocols in place at that point. Just to kind of give you some perspective, the stay-at-home order in Missouri just went in place today. But we're in a progressive town here in Columbia, college town, and they put their first order in place on March 17th, and then their stay-at-home ban went in place on March 25th. And that first order and every order since then that the city of Columbia has put in has specifically exempted the Columbia Farmers Market along with grocery stores. And so I think it's really important after this is all over to just kind of remember, we have a really great working relationship with our health department, and they trust us to operate in a safe fashion. And so we've just been really grateful to have that relationship with them and to be able to function. And since we've put all of our new protocols in place, we've been sharing those with the health department. Our pavilion's located in a city park, and we've been sharing that with them. So city officials are seeing all these protocols we're putting in place. So this Saturday was our fourth Saturday doing some different type of format, and each Saturday it's changed. So I was just going to kind of break down the weeks of what we put in place and what we've seen in those. So 5 weeks ago, we had almost 1,800 customers at our winter market. So that was back when we were operating normal. So the first week, our customer counts did decrease to almost 1,000. But we increased sanitation stations. We banned all sampling. And this and so we have these drop-down vinyl walls. So we had all the entrances propped open so people wouldn't be touching those when they came in. We also canceled all of our non-essential activities, kids activities, live music. We took away all of our seating and drinking stations. And we also created new sites on our website informing our customers and our vendors on the protocols that we were putting in place. Of course, washing hands as much as possible. We put these hand washing stations throughout the market. The following week, I was able to get my hands on some hand sanitizer, so we have those placed throughout the market now too. We were wearing gloves, and we were wiping down all of our surfaces and devices. We have continued to still take tokens, and we do sanitize those. They go into quarantine as soon as I get home, and I don't touch them for a week. So week 2, we had our customer counts drop to 653. And that week, we also banned all prepared foods on site, and all prepared foods, we're still allowing those, but they had to be packaged. And then we started directing traffic through one entrance and out the other. And we had staff at each entrance counting how many people were in and how many people were leaving. So at any point, we could see how many people were actually in the pavilion. We also, that second week, started spacing vendors every other booth. And then we banned tablecloths, and we encouraged the vendors to start setting up their stalls where customers could not touch or select their products. And we also started posting signs throughout the market about social distancing. We went from 1,700 to about 700 customers in 3 weeks. We decided we had to come up with a different system. So we continued to still operate as normal, but we decided to put a pre-ordering system in place. So that pre-ordering was on the vendors, but the market staff was then going to deliver those to the curbside for curbside pickup. That third week, we saw 397 customers, and we had only 10 pre-orders. These are some of the signs that we created and put throughout the market. That third week, we also set aside the first 30 minutes for people to shop for the seniors and at risk. This last Saturday, our customer counts, this was supposed to be our spring kickoff, and so we put our vinyl walls up when we were open air. We also reserved that first half an hour for customers at risk. A lot of people started wearing masks. We will require it next week, especially for our market staff. We did see a slight increase in customer traffic. We had closer to 500, and we had almost 50 pre-orders. So a couple other pictures. These are just some social distancing. This was our pre-order curbside pickup. So people just drove through and gave us their names, and we popped it in their trunk. This is just some of we started blocking entrances and more signs. More signs. And this is where we are counting everybody as they were coming in. More pre-orders, encouraging people to put their names in the windows. That made it really helpful. And then this is just a quick little video we did for the curbside pickup, just to inform customers on how to do it. We are continuing to take SNAP, and for the curbside orders, we are not exchanging tokens, and we're just working with vendors on the end to reimburse them for that, but we bring our device out to the curb and swipe their card. So that's about all I have.
Great, thank you. Thanks, so helpful. All right, great. You can unshare your screen. We will go next to Jess Joyce from Rochester Farmers Market, who will show their model. Right, have you unmuted, Jess? I think
I am unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yep, and I can see your screens too.
Awesome. So yeah, I will finish up. So my name is Jess Joyce. I'm the market manager of Rochester Farmers Markets in southeastern Minnesota. We're in a town, just for your comparison value, of about 160,000. We have year-round markets. Summer markets are between 65 to 75 vendors, and then our winter markets indoors, anywhere from 25 to 35 vendors. So that's where we're at, and I'm going to talk about the two-part approach that we used that was in partnership with the Minnesota Farmers Market Hub project. So we, looking back over the past couple of weeks, wanted to do as much as we could to support all of our vendor businesses. We are a vendor-owned market association, so with that in mind, we tried to keep the market open and operating safely, and then we also implemented a drive-through pickup and delivery service, which used an online ordering platform. So this is an outline of what that looked like in the space. The blue square is our farmers market building, and then we had customers drive through this area adjacent to the buildings to pick up the pre-orders. Within the market itself, we created additional space in the aisles. As several of you have mentioned, masks, precautions, and other PPE have been a little bit late to be implemented, but we anticipate some changes for our market next weekend. One of our biggest successes for the open market was using door opener greeters. So we had volunteers from the local medical school who not only stood at the door and opened the door so that customers weren't having to touch the handle, but also encouraged folks to use the hand wash station, which was right inside the door. Somebody had asked about hand wash stations. So the one in the foreground, that's about a $450 standalone unit with a foot pump. We got a grant from the statewide health improvement partnership system to purchase that unit. And then of course, others have shown the free-flowing spigot version balanced on a trash can is our low budget option. Some signage. Customers were really appreciative of the hand washing. We had those spaced throughout the whole market. This is a couple more images to show the flow of the pre-order system. We relied very, very heavily on volunteers to operate this. To give you some perspective, the market is operated in the winter with about 2 staff people. And then for this drive-through option, we ended up using 15 volunteers for both of the weeks that we've done it. So customers had placed their order. They came up through the drive-through. We had assembled orders by customer order number and had provided instructions to the customers so that they gave us their number. We had a volunteer check them in. If they hadn't paid, we were able to accept payment there. One thing that was neat was because of having an on-site payment system, we were able to accept SNAP, which wasn't very heavily used, but it was a good substitute. Here's another example of the cars coming through. Each time we would pair up a volunteer runner to retrieve the order from inside, and that person would bring out the order and load it into the customer's vehicle. Some thoughts about staging indoors. One big lesson learned was that the orders took up a whole bunch of space. So we tried to fit about 8 customer orders per table. First week we had 17 tables for 120 orders. And then last weekend we had, I think it was like 30 some tables for 255 orders. Our volunteers retrieving orders use their own individual hand washing station and PPE. Refrigeration was something to keep in mind, so we are able to sell frozen meats, dairy products, other things that belong in refrigerators. So this cooler or this trailer has been retrofitted as a walk-in cooler, and we had meats organized in the trailers for that. Just an image of someone loading an order into the car. I think there were a couple other points I just wanted to mention that a hurdle for us is that using this pre-order system caused the market to take on the responsibility and also a little bit of the liability of having the dollars go through the market rather than a more dispersed model where payments are going to individual vendors. However, there was also a strength to this. The market as an aggregator was able to put an upcharge on the products. So that was helping to offset some of our costs. So for example, if the vendors charged $1 for the product, the market hub put a 14% markup on it. So the customer would pay $1.14 and the market would profit 14 cents. So we don't have a total sustainability estimate for this model yet, but being able to do that has helped us offset some of our costs. That's where I'm at right now. We do hope to go forward with both. The idea is that the drive-through lets us encourage some customers who would not be comfortable or able to shop to use that option. But our summer market, I am not sure yet that we would be able to handle the volume of product through this online ordering option that we hope to be able to provide our community with the open market. So that's what I've got.
Great. Thanks, Jess. That was really great. Okay, the last person we're going to have speak is going to be Christy Welch, Ohio State University Direct Marketing Specialist. One of the reasons why we asked her to present was because she just hosted a very good webinar on drive-through models a few weeks ago, and it is a recording that is available. It is linked on our FMC best practices post. I believe it's on that one, pretty sure. So you can look at that recording, and I found it really helpful, very instructive, and I've sent it to a lot of markets that have said the same to me, that it was very, very helpful, very clean. So Christy's going to talk a little bit about what she's seeing in Ohio with her farmers markets, as well as anything that she would like to point out about what the needs are when working with vendors in these new systems. Christy?
Darlene, thank you. Hello, everybody. Glad to be here today. Couple of things that I just wanted to mention. Again, I don't manage a market. I work with a lot of market managers throughout Ohio. And so a couple things that I've just kind of been hearing, start a little bit slow. I think you might be surprised at the amount of support you have locally and the demand. And we had the Countryside Conservancy, their manager, Erin Molnar, on that webinar, and she indicated that they almost doubled their sales in one day based on what their normal winter market would do. And here's a map of the Countryside Conservancy, how they handled their drive-through farmers market. And I think that's the other thing that's really important to think about is communicating with your customers and your vendors, of course, how this is going to operate. So if you can do a map and share that on your social media and your website and put signage around the market, if you can make sure that vendors understand that as well. You know, one of the great things about farmers markets, and we've all said this for years, is that it's the social atmosphere and it's the interaction of getting to know people at the market, especially the farmers. And so it's really difficult to help remind customers of the social distancing. So the more you can do that beforehand and at the market, I think the better off that we'll all be. And then the other thing I would just mention is, especially for your vendors, if they haven't been very vocal on their social media outlets or on their website, I would encourage you to encourage them to not go silent online. I do think it's important that we all, whether we're markets or vendors, balance our messaging. We want to be hopeful. We want to encourage our customers that this will end at some point, but we also want to be sure that we are communicating to our customers how important it is that we all stay safe. That we want them safe, we want our farmers safe, and we want our staff safe as well. So, but I would just really encourage you to have some conversation with your vendors to help them get the word out about their operations and what they're doing and how to manage this. You know, I've seen a lot of flower vendors. You know, Mother's Day is usually a big time for fresh cut flowers and potted flowers and those kinds of things that have more capacity than they think they're able to sell. And doing things like, if you can get a sponsor to purchase however many of those and then deliver them to nursing homes or frontline workers, just to help create that sense of community and support. So those are just a few tips that I wanted to share that I've seen that have been working pretty well here in Ohio.
Great. Thank you, Christy. That's very helpful. And I know there's a lot of great questions coming in the chat screen. And what we're asking the panelists to do is to look through that chat screen and find the ones that were directed towards them. It's helpful if you can put their name, if you can, as in and when you direct it, but it's just to all panelists is fine as well. And that way we can respond to them and know exactly what, you know, exactly who's going to answer what question. So we've got about 15 minutes left, and we really wanted to give, first I want to do is give each of the panelists another chance to sort of circle back around and sort of sum up things that they would tell you, best practices, as well as, you know, you can certainly see, all of you have probably seen some of the questions in here that have coming through the chat screen. A lot of them just keep the same questions keep coming through. A lot of questions about, you know, how many cars can you estimate? Are you setting up longer days because of this kind of system? If you're doing a pre-pack, who pre-packs that? Are you adjusting fees? You know, are you using security? A lot of those, you know, where would you get some of these materials you all are talking about? So, I think you know what your fellow market managers want to know. So I'm going to go ahead and just let you, let the panelists unmute themselves and just sort of come up with, just a little wrap up of what they heard and some of those kinds of questions, what they might suggest. And go ahead and just go ahead and try to be the first. And if you interrupt each other, I'm sure nobody will feel bad.
Well, this is David from St. Paul Farmers Market. I would say that just a couple things to keep in mind. It's like, as you start your seasons, put these ideas in place, but just know that it's all flexible and that you're going to have to change and readapt each week. And each week you'll be adding and progressing and making your market better. I would say invite your Department of Health inspector, safety inspector down to come and look and to share ideas, to see what you're doing, to let you know what you're doing right, but also to let you know what you could improve upon. Outside influence, outside opinions from experts is very important. Also know that on social media, you're going to get some negative feedback. You're going to get people who don't think that we should be open, that it's socially irresponsible to be open. And think about how you're going to address these concerns.
Yeah, those are great points, David. I think, who else wants to speak up?
This is Martha from Mill City Farmers Market in Minneapolis. So I would just say go slow. I'm grateful that we had the winter markets to test this out and to try and see what's going to work and what's not working. we only had 7 vendors the first market, where we normally have 40 indoors, and then we moved to 25 vendors last week, and we will grow to May, where it'll be a combination of pre-order online as well as walk up, but really going slowly, because the support from the community is overwhelming, and they are thrilled for the most part. They have criticisms, and they're all got as much fear as the rest of us, but they are so thankful that what we're doing and putting this together and supporting the farmers, and they are coming out, and our farmers are seeing tremendous sales, but really go slow. Because we've got a lot of behavior changes to make, especially moving the customer along. Your markets are a social place, and places where people want to know what's happening on the farm. And those conversations are going to have to be interrupted and moved to social media or somewhere else, because the vendors aren't going to do enough business if they take time to talk to customers. So, and with all the spacing needs, so encouraging vendors to share what's going on the farm, share that hope and that vision of new growth through social media and other ways, because the customers are really supportive and want to know, but it's going to have to be done on another platform. And then the only other thing I would say is I've seen a lot of questions about programming. We are absolutely not having any sampling programs, any kids programs, no music. It's going to be a really transactional grocery shopping experience in order for the vendors to do as much business as possible and to keep people moving through as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm. That's good insight. That's good input. Yes, I think you're making a good point about sort of really thinking about everything but communication, different ways. And I think you're right, David. There's always going to be people who'd rather everybody stay in. Again, food is essential service. How we make sure that it's clear what language you can use. Anybody have any other ideas about how you might do that, or any other input you want to give among the panelists? Go ahead.
This is Corrine. And transparent with your customer base. We send updates out every week, just letting everybody know these are new protocols for vendors, these are new protocols, and just try to keep that communication open. And I think somebody said earlier that you're going to start getting negative feedback, and I just really agree. It's very important to figure out what that message is. And make sure that you're consistent with it. We've changed our market model 4 weeks in a row, and we will continue to keep changing, just doing everything we can to keep helping our vendors. And it's a scary time for the vendors too. It's really great to hear that a lot of the markets are having success. Our meat vendors are having a lot of great success. I don't know if all of our vendors are at this point. I think our biggest challenge shifting to this pre-ordering system is that pre-ordering is on the vendors, and these are vendors who don't believe on using online banking or anything on the internet, and convincing them to now take credit cards at the bare minimum. So it's a challenge for us to just slowly help those vendors understand and assist them however we can to help them still have sales.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good point.
Oh, this is Christy. I just wanted to respond a little bit. There was a question on here about what do you do for vendors that don't use or have an online presence. And of course, here in Ohio, we have a fairly large Amish and Mennonite community, and most of them, of course, don't use online. And so one of the things I would just suggest, if that is a large part of your vendors, I've seen it done both ways. Either the vendors take the pre-orders or the markets do the aggregation and take the pre-orders. And so if you have a large percentage of your vendors that don't use online platforms, that might be an option. I would just say, again, start small, because I have seen markets that have really gotten overwhelmed, more so than they thought they would. So just a word of caution.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I did a blog post. It'll be on our post, our FMC post. I went to my farmers market that just reopened as a drive-through in New Orleans this week. 25-year-old market, very, very sophisticated, trying to figure out how to do this. They did pre-orders through the website, just like our Baton Rouge market basically does, although they do both. But Crescent City only did pre-orders, and I can tell you that of the 5 vendors I called to do a pre-order, 1 figured it out. And I know them all very well. I was market manager for a long time, so I know them all extremely well. And I figured that'd be about right. It was the first week. They were like, sure, I'll just take some phone calls. And it was overwhelming. They didn't know how many they were going to get. They didn't have their things in place. Some of them were a little bit better. Some of them had texting and they got Venmo set up or whatever. It is just a very long learning curve. And I do think part of this is making sure that shoppers understand what a big lift this is for direct to consumer vendors, farmers who are absolutely been only doing farmers markets or farm stands for their entire life, to now all of a sudden in a matter of weeks during the middle of the most important growing season learn how to do an online platform. Figuring out how to communicate that to your shoppers without really dragging all of the things into it is a really important piece to that. And I think it's truly important to be transparent. I think you're absolutely right. Any other panelists have some points they want to make?
Hey, Darlene, this is Lee from the Pepper Place Market in Birmingham. The one thing that I would say, the kind of silver lining in all this is that I personally have wanted us to have some sort of form of online market for a long time, and so I'm really excited that we have a chance to test this. What I keep looking at is all the things we've thought about trying that this crisis has revealed. So, I think that getting back to a core small number of vendors and working with them very closely to make sure everybody follows the protocols, and then as the other person said before, just doing it all slowly, like just don't try to do too much. But I think that there were a couple of the farmers that are participating in our market that have been selling CSA boxes and have been doing online stuff for a few years. But some other ones, our assistant market manager actually helped people create their own online ordering page and help them find a way to do it in Squarespace, or find different cheap or free ways to manage that. And like literally, so far everybody that has reported to me said twice as much volume, twice as many sales I'm seeing that I would see at the winter market this time of year. They're so excited. It's like, yeah, it's taking me more time, but the meat guys said I was able to hire 4 people this week because I just can't pick and pack enough on my own with my wife, and they were like looking at financial ruin just a few months ago. I think I'm hearing that story over and over again, and I don't think that a lot of these people would have pushed themselves, as someone else said, to actually go ahead and get online, but the payoff has been big. Money talks for these guys, and men and women, and I think whenever we get back to normalcy, I'm kind of excited that this solid revenue stream can then be a part of their way of selling. Anyway, I'm really excited about how much everybody is learning and working really hard and learning a lot from it. So I'm, in a weirdest way, kind of really excited and optimistic.
Hi, Lee. It's Martha from Mill City. I agree. There's a lot of silver lining in supporting local. People are really thrilled, but we too leaned in and helped some vendors set up Square stores for themselves on their accounts. I've had a couple questions of wondering if the market was taking in the income, and no, we actually helped them set it up for themselves so they could transfer it to other markets and direct to consumer in the future. And those were things that some of them had been wanting to do, but didn't have the bandwidth, and we're going to probably hire an extra staff member to help them maintain it and learn throughout this summer because it will take some additional time, but we've seen it pay off for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's exciting. I think it's exciting that We've heard so many models here today that really looked at, their local context, what they had, what their assets were, what they thought they could do. I think capacity and assets and partners and logistics are all important. None of that all of those have to be thought about when you come up with your model. And I see a lot of markets that will write to FMC and say, they'll say, what's the model? And really, as you can hear, there's just not a model. There are lots and lots and lots of different versions. And even in each market, there are different versions of each. But I know that, the idea of having a completely new model within a few weeks or anything is really a lot to ask. But I think, what we hope from this very short webinar, really this could have gone on for a lot longer today, is that you can see that there are peers for you to draw on. There's websites, there's our website, other websites, these farmers markets. You can find out your own partners in ag and health, your cities to ask for their help. People are certainly understanding there's a moment to have here. And I'm going to give the last couple words to Ben Feldman, our executive director. Ben?
Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate that. I really am impressed today with all of the ingenuity that we've seen. I think this really does highlight the extent to which direct consumer sales, farmers markets are always innovating and always finding new ways of doing things. And as much as this is a crisis moment, it does help to narrow focus and then identify ways in which to deliver on that main goal that may not be the previous model, but really demonstrate the extent to which farmers markets are adaptable and can change as things develop. One thing that I do want to mention, we had some questions elsewhere around a retrospective on all of this when when we're hopefully a ways down the road and we're looking backwards on the response that our industry had to the coronavirus. What did we learn and how we can take that forward? And I think that's a very important thing to be thinking about too, is what works specifically, and then what are our types of responses to these broader issues. And one thing that is certainly true in all of that this has highlighted is the fact that markets that have established the relationships with their elected officials, the decision makers in their community, both at the local level, the county level, the state level, have often been those have been the locations that have been more proactive about getting good guidance and declaring markets essential. So one piece that's certainly true in all of this is that the partnerships, those relationship developments, when you're in a crisis moment, it's often, if you haven't done it already, you're not going to be as effective at it. So just another plug to remind folks to reach out to your elected officials and build those relationships in order to ensure that when you're in these moments where you don't have the resources to apply, that you can make that quick call and be able to get what you need. But big picture, I think the last thing I want to say here is that here at the Farmers Market Coalition, the reason we do this work is because of all of you. It is incredibly gratifying to watch how quickly the farmers market industry has made changes, how much you've all really embraced the idea of learning from your peers, and that we get to be able to be a part of this is really special. So thank you for everything that you all are doing to be the shining example of how businesses, how farmers markets can adapt and weather, even as we have this very serious obligation to our community. So again, thank you. And Dar, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, great. So we recorded this. We are keeping track of the chat and the Q&A. I know there were many questions you all had of individual panelists. We hope that they got a chance to answer. If not, we will make sure they get it. You will also be able to see all the contact information if you have a specific question you want to ask We'll be trying to move this into a larger FAQ and take all the photos and the slides and put that all together. As always with this field, reach out to your peers, ask questions, look on websites, see what people are doing. That's how we've all learned all of these years. And so that's still the way. This is certainly what's happening in this moment. So thank you all for coming. And again, we will be posting the recorded webinar as well as all the other materials within the next couple days. And don't forget that on Wednesday, we also have another webinar. This one's a SNAP 101 webinar, which is going to talk a little bit about how the structure of processing and transactions happen from the federal to state to the processor level. If you've ever wanted to know how that thing actually works, we're going to show you. So I hope to see you on that. Thank you all.